Today we're going to have a little look at rivets, and rivets are something that a lot of us as bag makers use a lot of. They help to give you a bit of extra strength, perhaps when you're adding a handle, and you can see I've recycled my fake bag that I made. But they're a bit of a mystery to a lot of people, and a lot of people are really worried about them. So I'm just going to try and demystify them a little. Now you have two different sorts of rivets to start with, and I've just added two in here, just randomly. You have double capped rivets. Now this one on this side is a double capped rivet. So on the front you have a little cap, and on the back you have a cap that matches the same. This one is a single cap rivet. So on the front you have a cap, and on the back you have a sort of a hole. Now it's probably easier if I show you the actual rivet itself. That's the back of a single capped rivet. So it has a hole. It's not particularly attractive. If you were attaching something where you wouldn't see the back of the rivet, these are perfectly fine. Where the double capped rivets have a cap on both sides. So from the back, they look exactly the same as they do on the front. So you have a cap on the back and a cap on the front. Now, let's start with sizing. We buy rivets, and often when you see them sold, it will say double cap rivet, maybe 8 by 8, and you think, oh, what does that mean? Well, the first number is usually the diameter of the cap. So if it says 8, it will be 8 millimeters from one side to the other. The second number is usually the length of the stem, and they come in lots and lots of different lengths, and you will use different lengths for different things. It depends on how thick your fabric is that you want to rivet. However, you can actually use longer rivets than you perhaps need on thinner fabrics, and I'll show you how to do that. So I think most commonly I have 8 by 8s, which I use for most things. I do have some 8 by 10s and some 10 by 10s and various other sizes in between. Rivets come in just about every colour you could imagine. This one's rose gold. These other ones are sort of silver, chrome coloured. Oh no, that's not. It's a white one. I lie. So that's actually a sort of enamelled one, and I've got enamelled ones in various different colours. But you can literally buy them in all of the finishes that you would use in bag making. So your rose gold, your brushed antique brass, gold, silver, the black colours and what have you. And you can get them enamelled in different colours, which are quite funky as well. My best advice on buying rivets is to buy a good quality rivet. I know you can go onto eBay and you can buy 100 and 200 rivets for a couple of pounds, but quality is questionable on some of the cheap rivets, and cheap rivets will often bend. So when you fit them, this stem part will actually bend within your fabric, and basically that means that the rivet is almost useless. Once rivets are fitted, in theory, they are very difficult to get out. However, I have actually removed them by using a pair of pliers where I've got hold of the back part of the rivet and two pairs of pliers, one on the front and one on the back, when I've used a sort of a pulling and twisting action to get them out. I believe you can buy a little tool that kind of goes in and snips the post in the middle. I don't have one. I don't know how efficient they are, and I would say that the pulling with a couple of pairs of pliers technique isn't always efficient, but sometimes needs must. And it's if you've got a rivet that's not quite right, and you need to get it out, then you'll do whatever you need to get it out. So let's look at how rivets will arrive. Now, most rivets, if you buy them, will have fitting tools. If they don't, then you can buy fitting tools from eBay, and they are very, very cheap. And what you'll have usually is an anvil, which they come in different sizes. It depends on the size of your rivets. And although these two are different sizes, the domed part in the middle is actually exactly the same size. So they both will fit the same size rivets. And then you'll get a tool to fit them. which is this long thing, and one end will have a sort of a domed part which will fit the dome over the rivets to stop it from flattening. If you don't use the right end, all you're going to do is squash your rivet flat, and it will not stay nice and domed and look pretty. Some will also come with one of these sort of little cutting type tools. I very rarely use those. I like to use your standard old-fashioned leather hole punch, which I just find I use for a lot of my hardware. So I just use these because I find it easier. If, however, you've got really weak wrists, if you've got arthritic hands, then sometimes actually this little tool is easier. And you'll need a hammer, a metal hammer, and ideally somewhere nice and hard and sturdy to fit your rivet. Now, I will not be fitting a rivet on my table here, because if I do, everything bounces, and you actually don't, because you get a bounce from it, the rivet doesn't set properly. I usually take them outside and do them on my back doorstep, which is made of stone, so there's no bounce. So let's have a look at how we fit them. So I've actually already made a hole, but I'll make a hole in the appropriate place using my tool. And I'm going to let's take this first rivet, and I'm going to pop the rivet through the hole. Now, the hole needs to be nice and snug. I think it's a 1 millimeter hole that I make for most of my rivets. It needs to be nice and tight around the rivet. You don't want too big a hole, because then the rivet will move around and it will not be secure. Once you've got your rivet through your fabric, you should have just 1 millimeter or so of rivet showing, of that post showing on the reverse side. I'm going through my lining here because I stitched the lining in. Pop the second half of your rivet on, and just, you hear that? There's an audible click. Just push it on and there's an audible click. And actually, if you try and pull that top end of the rivet off now, it will come off, but it's actually started to fix in. But you can see that it's still sitting, if I push that fabric down, it's still sitting quite proud. So that's not secure. Take your anvil, place 1/2, this is a double cut rivet, so obviously I can do this from either side, but place the domed half of my rivet into the small dome part of my anvil, rather, completely lost the word there. Pop your second half on top. Now this one's actually a wee bit big. That one fits better. Make sure that it's sitting at 90 degrees. If you have it bent, you will bend your rivet. So make sure it's sitting at 90 degrees. Take your hammer and give it probably just 2 firm whacks. Now I'm not going to do that because my phone will jump off the side of my table and everything will vibrate, and I'll have rivets all over the floor because I've got boxes of rivets sitting here, and it will be a nightmare. But a couple of nice firm whacks, just a couple. You don't need to go hell for leather at it, because the more you bang them, the more you will end up damaging your rivet. Now, if you give it too many whacks, now I don't know if you can see that, I did this one really hard, but the rivet isn't smooth on the top. There's almost like you can see where the stem is pushing up against the dome, and that's because I literally whacked it and whacked it and whacked it. So you need to make sure that you don't go doolally at it, because if you do go doolally at it, that's what you'll end up with, a slightly dented looking front rivet. Now, let's just see if I can't get that one out. It's not even fitted, it's the wrong one. Can't get that one out, I don't know. Let's have a look and see if I can. Oh no, I've got it off. So if you put your rivet in and you think, oh, that's a bit long, I've got too much stem, and I'm going to push that down so I've got lots of stem sticking out. What you can do is you can take a couple of pieces of faux leather or fabric or even a piece of fleece. Use your tool to make a hole in it. Obviously this would only work if the back of your rivet's not going to be showing, and you can pack out your rivet. Pack out the stem so that it's thicker. where you're actually putting in your rivet. And this is quite thin faux leather, but this is a scrap that I literally picked up off the floor as I was getting everything ready. That's better. So now I only have that sort of a 1 millimeter amount of my stem showing. You can cut these a little bit smaller. I've left them quite big. You can pop the second half of your rivet on and fit with the hammer. Now, if you have let's just take that off again. Let's take that out. If you have a single cap rivet, so you have this bit with the hole in, make sure that the bit with the hole in is at the reverse of your work. Again, this one's actually a bit too long, so I could put a couple of pieces of faux leather behind it. So if I pop a couple of those little faux leather pieces that I was using, just to pack it out at the back. So you won't be seeing the back of your work anyway, so this won't be seen. Then I've got the right amount showing at the front. I can pop my front cap on of the rivet, and you heard there's an audible snap as that goes on. Not all of them do that audible snap, but most of them do. Now, you must not use that domed part of the anvil on the back, because if you do, then what will happen is that the back of your rivet will just curve inwards, and it just looks really awful, and it's kind of pushing into the fabric on the back, and it will cut into the fabric because they're sharp edges. So what you need is for that flat back to stay flat. So we use the other side of the anvil on the bottom, and again we take our setting tool. That one's a bit small for that rivet, and we pop it over the top at 90 degrees and give it another couple of whacks just to fit the rivet. Now, so I'm not going to actually do it here simply because it'll all jump off the table. That's basically how you fit a rivet using hand tools. Now,